All right, let's just dive right into this explainer. Today, we're breaking down one of the absolute most complex, twist-filled narratives in modern pop culture. We're looking at a story that completely evolves from a desperate, simple survival tale into a profound, globally scaled geopolitical tragedy. Honestly, the way this narrative shatters its own foundation just to rebuild something entirely new is nothing short of a storytelling masterpiece.
So, what happens when humanity's greatest savior slowly becomes its ultimate threat? It's a heavy question, right? But it perfectly hints at the massive character shift we're going to explore today. It sets the stage for the psychological and moral unraveling of our main protagonist, and we're going to trace exactly how and why that terrifying transformation actually happens, without spoiling the incredible reveals right off the bat.
Which brings us to Section 1, Trapped Behind the Walls, Humanity's Last Stand.
We've got to start exactly where the story begins. This sets up the absolute, undisputed false reality that our characters, and, let's be real, us as the audience, firmly believed in. Humanity thought they were nearly wiped out, retreating behind these massive concentric structures known as walls Maria, Rose, and Sina. For over 100 years, there was this fragile, stagnant peace. People genuinely believed these walls were their only protection from the gigantic, humanoid creatures roaming outside. Well, that is, until the sudden and violent appearance of the colossal and armored titans. They shattered Wall Maria, let the nightmare pour in, and literally changed their world in an instant.
After helplessly watching his own mother get eaten during that initial breach, our protagonist, Eren Yeager, makes a definitive, totally black and white vow. I will destroy every titan. Keep this quote in the back of your mind because it's a promise that carries some incredibly heavy, dark, dramatic irony later on, when the true nature of his enemy is finally revealed.
Section 2. The Enemy Hidden Within, Monsters and Men.
Okay, so as Eren, Mikasa, and Armin join the military to fight back, they face this harrowing battle where Eren is seemingly killed. But instead of dying, he surprisingly transforms into a Titan himself. This introduces the story's first major complication. The shocking revelation here is that the Titans are not mindless monsters by nature. Most of them are actually transformed humans. The very genre of the story just begins to fracture. They aren't fighting instinct-driven beasts anymore. The horrifying reality is that they're fighting humanity's own altered forms. Eren's prowess suddenly becomes humanity's greatest weapon, but it raises some totally terrifying questions about the origins of the beings they've been slaughtering this whole time.
And then we get the ultimate betrayal. The discovery that Eren's own friends and fellow soldiers are actually the very architects of his mother's death completely shatters the trust within the walls. We find out that Reiner Braun, Berthold Hoover, and Annie Leonhardt, the armored, colossal, and female Titans, are actually child warriors sent on a devastating infiltration mission. They weren't just random monsters attacking. They were calculating humans hiding in plain sight, pulling the strings from the inside.
So why are these warriors here in the first place? What's the mission? They're after humanity's greatest weapon, the Founding Titan. This is the ultimate Titan power capable of controlling all other Titans. And the wild twist? It is currently locked inside Eren. It was secretly passed down to him by his father, Grisha Yeager, through a Titan serum injection long before Eren even knew what he was carrying.
Section 3. The Truth in the Basement, a World Revealed.
All the mysteries, all the death, and all those brutal sacrifices eventually lead our heroes back to Eren's childhood home, to unlock Grisha Yeager's basement. And guys, this reveals a massive paradigm shift. Everything we thought we knew gets turned completely upside down. The books hidden inside reveal a stunning secret. Humanity outside the walls still exists. The isolated post-apocalyptic survival story is completely dead. Humanity's actually thriving out there. The walls weren't a sanctuary from the end of the world. They were an isolation ward. The real geopolitical landscape is way darker than they ever imagined. The people inside the walls are Eldians, living on Paradise Island. They're descendants of Ymir Fritz, the very first Titan. And across the sea, that's the nation of Marley, a massive, modern global superpower. Marley brutally oppresses the Eldians living on the mainland, treating them as second-class citizens, and forcibly turns them into the very Titans that have been terrorizing Paradise. Those child warriors we talked about? Yeah, they were sent by Marley.
Section 4. The Rumbling Begins. The Heroes Fall.
Armed with the horrifying knowledge that the entire outside world actively hates them and will literally never stop attacking Paradise Island, Eren undergoes a radical, terrifying, and deeply tragic change. He gains even more power, including the Warhammer Titan, and finally unlocks the Founding Titan's full ability. And then he makes a chilling calculation.
he takes his initial vow to destroy the Titans and redirects that utter destruction toward the rest of humanity. He decides the only way to protect his people forever is to just destroy everyone else. He basically becomes the ultimate anti-hero.
This leads to a solution of truly apocalyptic scale, known as the rumbling. Remember those massive walls protecting humanity? Well, surprise, they were actually made of millions of dormant colossal titans. Eren unhardens the walls, releasing them in a horrifying, unstoppable march across the world to crush cities, armies, and entire civilizations. It's a literal leveling of the earth meant to wipe the slate completely clean.
Section 5. The tragic cost of peace. Stopping the apocalypse.
To stop the literal end of the world, old enemies and betrayed friends must do the unthinkable. They have to put their deeply rooted hatred aside and work together, forming what becomes known as the Alliance. It's incredibly powerful to see former child warriors from Marley, like Reiner, Annie, and Payak, fighting shoulder to shoulder with the Paradis soldiers they once tormented, like Mikasa, Armin, Levi, Jean, and Connie. They unite against totally impossible odds, with one singular, heartbreaking goal: reach Eren's founding titan and stop the rumbling before it flattens the rest of the planet.
The relentless sequence of events to bring Eren down is an absolutely chaotic and heartbreaking climax. First, the Alliance literally fights through enormous odds across the back of Eren's massive skeletal founding titan. Then, Armin uses the explosive transformation of his own colossal titan in a desperate last-ditch bid to stop him. Finally, it all comes down to Mikasa, the person who loves Eren the most, forcing her way inside his titan's mouth to deliver the final, fatal blow by beheading him.
This intimate, deeply tragic moment of sacrifice is the true emotional core of the finale. Mikasa kisses Eren goodbye, ending his life in a scene that merges profound love with ultimate duty. But this act actually does more than just end Eren's life. Her choice to let go of her love for the greater good resonates with the spirit of the founder, Ymir Fritz, finally freeing her from thousands of years of supernatural suffering and slavery. And in the immediate aftermath of that sacrifice, because Ymir is freed, the power of the Titans disappears completely from the world. Every shifting Titan, every mindless monster, instantly returns to being a normal human. The biological curse of the Titans that fueled 2 millennia of hatred and warfare just evaporates. So Eren actually achieved his childhood vow of erasing the Titans, just definitely not in the way anyone ever expected. But the narrative leaves us with a pretty sobering reality. Years later, Armin and the surviving Alliance members dedicate their lives as ambassadors, working toward peace between Paradis Island and the devastated outside world. But conflict never truly disappears. Even with the Titans gone, human nature remains entirely unchanged.
This story is just an absolute masterclass in examining heavy themes: freedom versus fate, the cyclical nature of war and revenge, the endless cycle of hatred, and the agonizing cost of peace and sacrifice. It asks some incredibly tough questions about what sacrifices are truly justified for the sake of survival and friendship.
So I want to leave you with this final thought to reflect on. If the curse of the Titans is gone, why does the cycle of war continue? We watch characters give up their humanity, betray their friends, and literally flatten the earth to break a curse. But if the monsters are gone and humanity still finds a way to burn it all down again, who is the real enemy? It really forces us to look past the fantasy of the story, past the Titans, and directly at our own human history.